First of all, thanks Holacracy One for organizing this whole thing. I do a lot of Holacracy talks, but it's never to people who actually understand it, so I'm pretty happy with that. Or at least I hope so. So I'll talk about onboarding, but I'll take it a bit broader towards learning, because that's also what Springest is about learning continuously. Here you see or at least a part of the team. Indeed, we started with about 10 people in 2012 with Holacracy. So we've been practicing it for about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. And what is important to note is that Holacracy for me is also in itself a learning experience, and something we also had to learn how to learn it. Not just learn Holacracy or learn the Constitution, but really learn how learning works within it. And I want to sort of show you how we did that, or how we're doing it. Feel free to tweet. My handle is right there. I'll also share the presentation afterwards, so you no need for, let's say, detailed note taking. So it all started 5 years ago with Diederik. Before Energized was a thing, actually. He was just on his own, and I was on my own, and basically there were no big Holacracy implementations in the Netherlands, so we were just figuring it out as we went. A very interesting process, learned a lot, and I think by now it's a bit easier to get help at least. But we just sort of figured it out on our own. I took the leap by signing the Constitution, of course. Diederik put a nice frame around it, and it's still somewhere in the office, and we point people to it to say, it's real, you know, my signature is on there, it's still there. It still means I'm part of the same system, and I don't have any special rights whatsoever. So that's how it all started. A little bit about Springest. Springest is your source for learning, as we say. You see the Amazon in the background. We want to be the Amazon of learning. And our purpose, of course, also the purpose of our general company circle, which we call alignment, because it aligns all the other circles. Our purpose is to help everybody reach their full potential through learning. And that's also actually my purpose. We used to also have a second part of the purpose, and that was being the learnest company. We also want to be the company that learns the fastest, the best, sort of adapts itself to its environment. So internally we still often say, you know, yeah, we want to be the learnest, so we have to figure out how to do this faster or how to speed up the learning, stuff like that. So what do? So you know a bit about sort of what kind of work we do, what kind of roles we might have. We have this portal where you can find anything to learn from, so seminars, events, full MBA programs, e-learning, videos, e-books, trainers, coaches, all kinds of stuff. And we do the same thing in Germany, where we just have a cooler slogan, which is Schneller, Schlauer, Springest, which I very much like. And we do the same thing within organizations as well. So Siemens, also here actually, they are using our portal internally to speed up their learning. So that's actually something we discovered only a few years ago, that our Holacracy practice connects to our product. And it's now sort of one story where we say, we want to be the learnest and we want to help you become the learnest as well. And for us, that means self-organizing. And sometimes our customers ask us, you know, hey, how do you organize? Yeah, we like the learning stuff, but how do you do the rest? So it's really intertwined for me. Same with technological companies like Stork, PostNL, the Dutch Postal Service, and ING. All those companies use Springest to organize learning internally. And all of them say they want to speed up learning. They want to make it more bottom-up. They want people to learn in smaller, let's say, bites. And then, of course, comes the self-organization question as well. So, structure of what I'll tell you. Start with the why, very important. Then, how do people learn about Springest? So, how do people get to know Springest? Then, our hiring and trialing process. I'll explain what a trial is soon. It's sort of like a funnel, of course. A lot of people get to know Springest. Some people, you know, get to be part of the hiring and trial process. Then, of course, the onboarding itself. Talk a bit more about that. And then about how do we do the learning. The continuous learning after that, because that's also, you know, part of the onboarding. I say it's a continuous onboarding experience because roles change, circles change, your roles change. So yeah, you have to keep on onboarding basically. So my why is this. A letter my dad wrote me in 2001 in which he said, well, I don't really worry about you. That was the question for the letter. Write something to your son. It was sort of a group assignment with a group of friends. They said, what do you worry about or what do you think of him? And he said, well, it's okay that he stopped studying because I never finished my studies. I run a company about education, but I don't really believe in studying formally. So he said, yeah, that's all fine, and he'll manage, but what I do worry about is if he uses all of his potential and sends it out back into the world as something positive. And that stuck with me, and still we use it as the company purpose. So this is why I'm here, actually. I want to use the potential I have and throw it out there as something positive. That's why I'm doing basically everything I'm doing. For the company, it's more this, intrinsic motivation. It's about getting the most out of people that work for Springest. I'm not doing this because I'm a hippie or something, because of altruistic motives or something. I think this is the best way to, let's say, squeeze the most out of people in a way that doesn't squeeze them dry within a year. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I believe in Holacracy, or at least something like it. And this is something we tell our customers as well. We say it internally, just try it out. What's the risk? And then we have this cartoon that says, if we try it out, people start to make decisions. What if they're wrong? And we say, yeah, what if they don't and they were right? And that's something that actually happens more often. If you look at the financial sector that had all these incidents, all these nasty things at Volkswagen recently, of course, those were sectors that were heavily regulated. And because of that, all the bad stuff happened, So I think this is the big shift that we're sort of seeing right now. And this is how we explain that to customers and to the outside world very often. So how do people learn about Springest? This is the most important thing, actually. I'm out there all the time. No, one further. So I do a lot of these talks, talk about how we work, talk about what it's like to work at Springest, talk about what we believe in, all those kind of things. And there are a lot of surveys that show that, especially people who are entering let's say the market right now, finding a job, they'll say, I want to learn a lot. I want to have freedom to make decisions. I want to really pour myself into the company that I'm working for. And the whole self-management sort of story fits with that very well. So that's part of how they get to know us. Another thing is that we now won the Best Employer Award 3 years in a row. Last time we were third, though, but they said you could still, that still means you won. So we were third, we were first the first 2 times. So we're in the newspapers, and they'll ask us why, and we'll say, Holacracy. We'll say our learning environment, the learning speed that people have here. So people get to know us and get to know Holacracy way before they even consider applying for a job at Springest. And that's a very important part of the hiring. We were also in the book Exponential Organizations, connected to Singularity University, and they made a list of 100 exponential organizations. And Airbnb was on number 1, and Uber was number 2, and then Springest was number 45. So that was pretty nice to be on, in good company. So again, and Holacracy was mentioned as one of the reasons that we were on the list in the first place, because we could scale exponentially. And we're in an area, learning, that also scales exponentially. And another thing is that we win some other small awards, and one is the Tinypulse Employee Recognition Award. Tinypulse is a tool with which you can survey your employees every month, or every week actually, and it sends out a question every time, and once a month the question is, how happy are you at work? So we have this nice benchmark of how happy people are at Springest versus other companies. And what's interesting is that from all their customers, at that time I think there were 11,000, we were the company that gave each other the most compliments, because in the tool you can also give each other compliments. And I found that very interesting, because in general, if people join Springest, the first thing they say, also when they're just joining for one meeting or when they join the company, they say, wow, everybody's so critical of each other here. Like nothing you do here sort of stays silent. Everybody sees your numbers, everybody gives you feedback. Every time you request an action, people will ask you why, give me data, it's all very critical. But at the same time, they give each other the most compliments. I'm pretty proud of that, actually. So I think that's very balanced, not because we sort of keep it silent, but because we do both things. We're very critical and give each other a lot of compliments. Another thing how people come to know Springest is the Safari. You can all join a Holacracy Safari as well. You just book it on Springest, of course. We dog food that, so the product you can buy on Springest is going to Springest and sit in on our alignment, tactical, and governance meeting. So many people join that, see that, spread the word, talk about how interesting it is to work at our place, etc. So a very important part of the hiring, just showing how we work. I think in general, in the big picture, it's the most important part actually, because this creates a huge funnel for us. And then the rest becomes easy, filtering out the good ones. The last one, we have the evangelism circle. I was doing these talks every now and then someone said, you don't actually have a role for that, do you? And I said, no, I'm just doing it personally outside of Springest. But actually, I was talking about Springest all the time. I was doing it during work time. So, that created a tension, and I started a role, and the role became a circle, and now it's a circle with, I think, 9 or 10 people in it. All kinds of roles about giving interviews, doing speaking, organizing events. Annemieke organized the meetup tonight. And that circle has its own purpose, to spread the way we work. So it's really a part of Springest, this whole, let's say, presenting to the outside world thing. Okay, about the hiring then. Like any other company, we start with a job ad. I mean, there's a resource issue. I'll show you how resource issues arise at Springest or how they're communicated, but we start with a job ad. But then, of course, you can't say sales guy or whatever, manager. There's not just one title, of course. So what we generally do is what you see here, just list a bunch of roles that might be you. And in general, this is a role that's pretty salesy, but it also has some other things. And in this case, I'm also looking for someone who might become a lead link or a rep link. So we put that in there, just the roles that you can, achieve. And then we also link, you don't see the link here actually, we link to this thing, roles.springest.com, and we say, it's not really clear what roles you'll have. We have a resource need for some of these, but go to roles.springest.com, and you can just do that as well. And you can see all roles at Springest. And it's all visible, of course, like you can do with Glasswork as well. We did it with an internal tool that we developed together with a German company called Eparo. Also doing, nobody here from Eparo, by the way, right? No, too bad. So we built this tool, and we say to people that want to work at Springest, look at this. And then tell us what roles you would like. And of course, we're looking for these ones, so please apply if you're interested in these roles. But then please check out the other ones as well, and show us your ambition. Show us what you'd also like to do. You might not get them right away, but you know where you might go in the future. Very important part of it. So that's the question that's almost always in the application process before they even come in for interviewing. Then we do this, of course, sit at a table and be nasty to people. The people who are involved in the interviewing process are generally the lead link, 1 or 2 peers from the first circle you'll likely join, and the happiness role, who has a veto. I hold the happiness role, and I think it's, next to evangelist, the most important role I have, because it's sort of a culture guard. So happiness always has a talk with someone before they go into a trial or, say, further hiring process. And I just gauge whether the person is a fit for Springest as a person. Purely that. I don't care about the roles, I don't even know about it. Usually I do know something about it, of course, but I explain to them, I'm here because of your personal fit, or lack thereof. I'm here because of your happiness, and we're just talking about that, what makes you happy, what gives you energy as a person, and just want to know how that fits with Springest. And then you'll talk to a lead link and to one of your peers. And more or less together, but happiness has a veto, they decide if you can come in for a trial. And that means this, we throw you in at the deep end. Only 1 in 3 people that we invite for a trial gets hired in the end. So it's not just a formality or something. It's not starting to work at Springest. It's really part of the vetting process. And it's a usually 1 to 3 day process where you get full access. So we make an account for you in our project management tool in Asana. We actually give you the roles. And you just do the work that we expect you to do within those roles. Of course, we help you a bit more. You don't just say, good luck, because that would take too long. But in general, we just let you do your actual roles, which is really tough for people. So there's a big filter there as well. Sometimes people don't want to do the investment of a 1 to 3 day trial. Sorry, not for us then, There's a big sort of door there that then closes. What happens in the trial is that the lead link of your circle, or maybe multiple lead links, as is the case here, Fleur Kuipers, who was recently hired, so I just looked up her trial project. And you see there are some provider roles, there were some tasks for here, and some organization roles. Those are 2 circles we have. And I was the lead link of one of the circles and someone else for the other. We just made some tasks, like call a few of these companies, then look at this, tell us what you think, discuss this with role X and Y, etc. And just in Asana like we would normally do. And there's some discussion then on the bottom right that you see that the trial user sort of fills in. And sometimes they start mentioning other people or casually drop role names and stuff like that. And those are good signs. Also, what you see is not all actions are complete. And that's very important because there's always too many. So what we're looking for is, do they ask questions about why these tasks are there? Do they start to prioritize? Do they start to think about what they would want to do first? And if that doesn't happen after, let's say, an hour, we ask them like, hey, there's quite a lot of stuff on there. And, what are you going to do first? And sometimes they say, yeah, I'm just starting at the top and working my way through. I think I can do it. And that's a pretty bad sign because there's no consciousness. They're just randomly doing stuff. And then we give them some feedback, like, hey, it's probably best if you sort of figure out what's important because do you already know what's on there? Sometimes people haven't even read all the tasks. They just started at the top to be done with it. So this is a very important part of the trial. Some people have a natural inclination to start landing, being conscious, asking questions, and that's great. And if they don't, then we help them. But what you see is it's not something you learn easily. It's something you have a natural inclination to do. So we give them some feedback, and then I'd say half the people then picks it up. And they go, oh yeah, right, of course, I shouldn't just start doing stuff. I should maybe ask, or I should, get a bit more conscious about what is expected of me or what I can do. So then usually the ball starts rolling. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they stay stuck, and well, we'll see. We'll give them some more feedback. We talk in Slack about them. There's always a channel, like a hidden channel, and we talk about them like, have you said this already, or have you asked that? And then we go on. So then the onboarding, and this will be quick. A lot of it's dog fooding, as you already saw. You get a project, you get roles, you use the Springest tools we use internally. It's all about using our own tools. That makes it easier for us to set it up, but also it forces people to make the tools better, and that makes Springest better. So it all feeds back into itself. Very important part of our onboarding. I'll show you. Of course, you get a role. Your first role is Springeteer. And the Springeteer role everybody has. And if you drop it, there might be legal consequences because this is connected to our contracts, to our employment contracts. And the Springeteer role is still pretty young though, but it's our first attempt to, well, like Encode does, try to connect the legal stuff with the Holacracy stuff. So it's a role that says a few things about how you are supposed to behave as a Springeteer. Then there's an onboarding project that you get. I'll just quickly show you with a small animation I made, and that's this. So it's, I think, 65 tasks usually, and you have that project as the onboardee. It's not like someone else is onboarding you. You get the tasks. Here you go. And then, everybody can see what you're doing and get updates on it, etc. So again, this is G2D Holacracy stuff. And there's a ton of stuff to read, forms to complete, stuff to do. Next one. Then there's also an onboarding buddy role. That also has a project to onboard you within the circle. The first one is to onboard you as a Springeteer. The second one is within a circle. Most circles have these buddies. Not all of them. Some had the need, some didn't. And here you see that Ruben, who is the LA onboarding buddy, has 3 projects to onboard people, and he has a big project as well with a lot of actions to take those people through the process. What's interesting is that a ton of stuff gets added to the project. It's very alive, so to say. So if someone notices a fault in the onboarding, they can add it to the onboarding project so that the next onboardee will have a better onboarding experience. And it's a template that we copy, so every time it gets better. Very important part of it. We have an internal help desk in the same system that our customers use. So again, you're using the dog food. You're eating the dog food again. Internal help desks with a lot of onboarding stuff like the history, courses for that, anything you might imagine. Also very lively. And of course, if you want to book a course, and you have to, it's one of your tasks, or have to at least, it's expected of you, you book it via our internal Springest platform. And there's the happiness workshop that I give, which is about culture and how we work, etc. So you just say, book this course, it might be good for you. And something very interesting, and that ties into the compliments, we are very tough with people, in the sense that you will hear a lot of not my role. and why are you asking me, and all those kind of things. And Josje, a young girl who joined us a year ago, she said, I was pretty insecure, I was always worrying about stuff, but I kept hearing, we'll do it live. And that's something we say, doing it live means just doing it. Is it safe enough? Just do it. And it made her insecure. But at some point she said, well, at first she got less done, she felt obstructed, and then she started to get the hang of it. I was just reading what she said. She said to herself, what would I say to Josje? She says, you get the freedom, use it. So we used Josje's input as well to tell people, there's a lot of freedom, please use it. There's always a role for it. We have 2 roles that are very interesting. One of them is here, I think. We have the Brian Robertson rep. That's 5 people who hold that role. And there's also the David Allen rep. You can't really see, but here's a circle. So they represent the Brian Robertson within Springest. And those are experienced Holacracy people who sort of, represent Brian internally. And one of the Brian Robertson reps is Diederik, by the way. Diederik has a role at Springest to represent Brian at Springest. Sorry. Maybe at some point. You could propose it. You're not a core circle member, so no. Sorry. Okay. Final points. A lot of focus is on learning at Springest. There's learning budgets. We have learning goals. They're all open for everybody to see, to discuss, to help each other with, to group each other into in-company training, stuff like that. So all of this is very open, and we expect everybody to have 2 or 3 ongoing learning goals. We have a resource needy roles board where you can find roles that are resource needy according to their need link, and then you can heart those roles to indicate you would like to have it. And then a conversation ensues, and you might get it or not. In this case, I hold this role, and apparently the lead link of Smooth Ops thinks I'm still better for it, even though I've told her I would like to drop it. But I'll keep it for now because she says I don't have anybody better, so could you please keep it? So I'm still doing the Friday town hall meeting, which this role is. In total, just to give you some context, we have 6 plus 3 subcircles, so 3 sub-sub, 240 roles, about 8 roles per person on average, and 20 changes in that per month. I think that's actually more, but those are, let's say, major changes. And I just told Dennis, our internal tools guy, like, hey, can you look up some metrics for me? This was in Slack just now. And I said, only do if it's 5 minutes work, and then I might show it in the presentation. And he said, okay, 5 minutes, dangerous limit. And he did it within 9 minutes, so that's okay. So here you can see, some people with how many roles they have. And I do have the most, 32, but I have a lot of small roles. And some people have 1 or 2 or 3. That's also pretty normal. And some have 13, 30, 20. That's what it looks like for us after 5 years. Just thought I'd share with you. I'll skip this. This is something I did want to show. Tinypulse, we use it to measure happiness and benchmark ourselves to other startups and other companies. Luckily, we're above, but we are hiring a lot. The yellow line is us. We're hiring a lot, and with hiring, you see that the happiness becomes pretty unstable. New people join, and at first, they might be unhappier or just feeling a bit frustrated. That's pretty normal. We've seen that. So every time our hiring picks up, the happiness gets very flaky, very interesting. And every quarter, we also measure the onboarding process in Tinypulse. So again, here you see people can give a grade, and then they can give feedback on the onboarding process. And the onboarding gets a high grade. But a lot of feedback is in there. And this is very normal for us, to just get like 30 comments out of 40 people with a ton of feedback on how the onboarding is going. So this feeds back into the loop again. Final point, I think. 50% of the people that don't work at Springest anymore, and there are about 25 of them, started their own business after working at Springest. And I think that says a lot about our onboarding and what it takes to work in a mature holacracy. Many of them don't want to work for another company anymore, and almost all of them only work for, let's say, pretty special companies, not just some corporate, some average job. So very interesting. And the final point, for me, it's mostly about culture, and that's very soft, and that's why I want to reiterate, as I always say, many people don't understand holacracy. I think you do, but even then, don't look at Springest as an example. Just look at Springest as, it will work, or it might work, but don't look at us to sort of get inspiration for how you could do it, because you have to still do it based on tensions. It's not about adopting a system just like that. So please don't just steal it. It would be nice to steal, but roll your own. That was my final point. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, we've got time now for some Q&A for Ruben and Matthias. Okay, he's back there. Do we have another mic? Handheld mic somewhere? Do you know? Just this one? Yeah. We've got another mic going, and I'm just going to run this one around.
50% making their own business. How high is your fluctuation rate?
I don't know exactly. I don't know. I think it's in line with other startups with a lot of young people. Also, we hire very fast, so I could look it up, but I know the absentee rate is about 3%, which is not super low, but pretty low, I think.
Other question? Yeah.
I would like to add something that I heard when I talked to Matt, one of your colleagues. And I asked him, hey, how do you do the onboarding at Springest? And I kind of asked him stuff, and he said, well, in order to get to become a lead link, you have to be like a master in GTD, a master in Holacracy. And I was really impressed by that. And for me, it really transported a lot of, I think, what's probably a success factor for Springest. Because, I mean, I experienced it differently, where the lead links were usually the people who knew least about these things, I still consider the lead link role to be important. And I wanted to hear your take on this and also share it with the group because I found it very impressive.
Yeah, well, Matt's a very good example. I think he has 24 roles or something. And what I usually tell people who want to be a lead link is, first of all, it's not that big of a deal. But you only get there if you own your other roles. And for that, you have to be very good at GTD because you'll likely get more roles. Then you get better at prioritization across those roles, and then you might become a good lead link. So GTD is really indeed the thing for that, and Matt is a very good example of that indeed. So own your roles. That means you might get more roles or become a lead link. And even though lead linking might cost you only 10% of your time, sometimes even less, it's very important that in the 10% you don't screw it up. That there is clarity about strategy, that the resources are spread good around or within your circle, that there's a good contact with the outside circle, etc. So it's a very hard job that requires really, at least, indeed, let's say, master guru level GTD. So yeah, agree on that.
Great, more questions.
Hi, do you have any suggestions to the CEOs who wanted to try Holacracy, how they can be ready to start?
Well, many advice. I mean, if there's a special topic, then ask me later. But the biggest thing I would say is be tough. In Dutch we have a saying, zachte heelmeesters maken stinkende wonden. So, if you can all repeat after me. And that's the one I had to learn together with Diederik, actually. When I first said, we're going to do this experiment, it's Holacracy, and it's a bit weird, but trust me, guys. Let's just try. That didn't really work. After I said 3 months in, guys, this is it. If you want to change it, you can change it within the system. If it sucks, you can fix it. And I expect you to fix it, and I'll try to fix it too. But then I became really tough, This is the system. We're going to use this. If you have an action and it's not in Asana, it doesn't exist. If you don't do GTD, you're out, When I became tough, it really started to work very well. I think you can do it in a softer way as well, but it will take so much longer. It will be so much more painful. So be tough and be all in is my advice for CEOs for sure. Because they are always doubting and they don't want to give up all the control, etc. And that's the one thing I learned at least.
Great, thanks. Other questions?
I'm really interested in the culture part of your company. You talk about happiness. I remember Zappos, also one of their values is happiness. Does it happen just naturally because you adopt Holacracy, or is it just at the beginning of your company startup was the original core values?
Yeah, good to note. For me, it's not about happiness. Happiness is just a tool. Happiness for me, in let's say really tough, is a tool to get the most out of people. That's why we always focused on it. If people are not happy, they will work less hard, they will make more mistakes, they will impact their colleagues. There's a huge detrimental effect of unhappiness. So we always had that because I had this personal purpose of using the potential. So that's more what it ties into for me. Not so much happiness as a goal, but happiness as a tool. And with Holacracy, I think we've been able to sort of manage that tool better, or make it more concrete or more explicit. But it was always there because of my wish of getting the most out of everybody. And I think if they're happy, you get the most out of them.
You answered them all.
Yes, that's it.
Fantastic. All right. Another round of applause for Ruben.